Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalaka Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
So if we say there is no ultimate absolute principle behind anything, then there is no purpose, direction or meaning to life. Then we may ask the person, why are you going on this journey? You're not going on this journey to eat chicken and chapatis, because that you can do anyway. That's incidental. There must be some purpose for your journey. Why are you traveling? So it may be to meet friends, to go for a job appointment, to sell my goods. There's so many people, so many reasons why people travel. They have some purpose. So you cannot say that life is completely purposeless or meaningless. At least if you meet a person on the train on a journey, if he says, well, I don't believe life has any purpose, you say, well, why are you going on this journey? Is there no purpose? And if there's no purpose, then why did you book a reservation and get on the journey? That's just like madness. In general human society, if a person was to do like that, just for no reason, and book a ticket on a train and go from one place to another with absolutely no particular reason for doing so, then not only would they be mad, but they wouldn't have any means of subsistence, because you have to work, do a job to get some money in a regulated, ordered way. So, if our argumentative atheist on the train, we're just postulating a situation that goes on, we're discussing as it occurs in practical preaching. So, there's purpose to life. No one can say there's no purpose. And, well, you may say, well, everyone has a different purpose. But, that is unprovable. You may say everyone has a different purpose, but that's also a blind faith. That says, if you say that we say that there's an ultimate purpose, you may say, well, that's blind faith. And your idea that there is no purpose, or that everyone has their own purpose, that is also blind faith. And if you say that everyone has their own purpose, or that there is no particular purpose, you still cannot avoid the fact that everyone is controlled. So, you may think there's no purpose, or I have my own, I just do as I like. But the fact is that we are controlled by time. We are forced to die. In so many ways, we're forced to do so many things. So that there is a power superior to us is axiomatic to all but a rascal. That there is an ultimate purpose of life is a more reasonable proposition than that there is no ultimate purpose. Persons who want to avoid admitting such points, they will attempt to go off on many tangential discussions. They'll say something, they'll throw in something which has nothing to do with the discussion, something like, well, how do we believe that Ved-Vyasa actually wrote all these scriptures, which has got nothing to do with the point being discussed, which you can say. Don't allow them to go off the point. It's not the point being discussed. Or they'll say that, well, your Krishna was immoral. That's not being discussed. We're not discussing it. We didn't come to that point. We're discussing the point that there is purpose to life. Therefore one should have faith in it. So you say, well, you're Krishna Samal. Yeah, but first you have to accept this point. And then what is the nature of the absolute truth? That we should see later. First you should accept that there is an ultimate purpose of life. And that it therefore behooves us to inquire into that. But, as is stated in the verse after this, by Lord Krishna, Agyas cha shabithanas cha Sankshayatma vinashyati nayang lokos dinaparo nasukam sankshayatma. Ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness, they fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. There are some people who, even if good arguments are given to them, and even if actually they're defeated in discussion, they still don't accept. But still we should be able to defeat them in discussion. So at least that if they refuse to accept a very reasonable proposition that there is an absolute purpose to life, that life is meant for more than simply eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. If they don't accept this, then at least we should be able to show that their arguments, which to them they sound like this is an undefeatable. They consider their position undefeatable. All this is just blind faith, and they think that they got you trapped. They think there's no way to demonstrate. They think that there's no way to demonstrate that religion is nothing more than blind faith. Probably because everything they came in contact with previously was just blind faith. But Krishna consciousness is not simply blind faith. Faith is there. Everyone has to have some kind of faith. Shadhamayo yang purusha yo yat shadha sa evasa. Every person has some kind of faith. One is classified according to his faith. That means Tamagun Rajagun Sat. So everyone has faith. Just like a man on the train eating his chapatis and chicken has faith that this will nourish his body. So faith is that he has faith that it's not poison. Everyone has some faith. He has faith that the train, saying he's going from Chennai to Mangalore. So he has faith. He bought the ticket and he got on the train. He has faith that this train will reach you to Mangalore. So that's a very reasonable faith. The train goes every day and says everyone accepts that. It's possible that it could take a diversion at Kalgat and go to Trivandrum. But there's no expected reason why it should do so. It seems a reasonable faith, you may say, but still it's faith. You have no guarantee. It seems unquestionable. When you board the train at Chennai, if you go the West Coast Express, and you have your ticket and you have your reservation, it seems unquestionable that the train will, in due course of time, maybe a little late, reach you to Mangalore. Unless there's some major disaster like a bridge collapse or something like that. But in general, it's expected we will reach. So then you'll call on your cell phone to friends in Mangalore that, yes, I just got on the train, please meet me at the station tomorrow at 5:30. It's expected that, please meet me at the train station tomorrow morning at 5:30. There's no guarantee that tomorrow morning at 5:30 the train's going to reach, that I will still be alive, that the train station will still exist, that Mangalore will still exist. No guarantee. Never. Someone might have an atomic bomb explosion in Mangalore and finish off the whole place. Don't expect it to happen. But there's no guarantee. It's on faith we phone up and say, please meet me tomorrow morning at the station, 5:30. It's already almost 24 hours away. But we have faith. I'm on the train is going, I shall go. So everyone has some kind of faith. And according to the expansion of our consciousness, we can expand our faith. Just like the primitive person living in the jungle, they don't have knowledge of science. They don't have faith in it. They don't have knowledge of that. They have no knowledge, they have no faith. They have no faith because they have no knowledge. They've never been exposed to such things. But if someone is exposed to such things, then their faith will develop. Because Einstein had faith in principles of knowledge that were not current in human society at that time. Therefore, he was able to pursue his theories and present that to the world. Only because of faith. Einstein's theories, when they were published, there was no experimental proof, and especially we're talking about his relativity theory. There was no experimental proof at the time to back it up. He presented it on faith only. To him it seemed reasonable. But there was no experimental evidence at the time to demonstrate. So in the same way, we see that if one's consciousness develops, then his level, his depth of understanding can develop also. Einstein's theories and understandings, they are transcendental to that of the ordinary man. Here I'm using transcendental not in the sense that we usually use it, which means transcendental, the three modes of material nature. Transcend means that which simply goes above and beyond. That is the literal meaning. So certainly Einstein's scientific thoughts transcended that of the common man, and still do. The common man is still not able to come to the level of understanding what Einstein was talking about. Even the common scientists, for that matter, cannot understand. So, especially when we get into the more subtle areas, then faith will be less and less in that which we can directly perceive. Generally, those who are against blind faith in religion, they say, well, we should just believe what we see. But even in science, when we get to the more advanced levels, it's not always what we see. It's also what we, especially in modern quantum theory, a lot depends on what we subjectively feel also. Because reality, especially as we get to the more subtle levels, does not simply consist of that which we perceive by our senses, but also by our feelings about it. The living being is not simply just like you can put a box, or just like that. There is this at the airport. They have this metal detector, so it can detect metal. Show it around your body. security. Entrance to temples now in the others. Because some people who have faith in Islam think that their faith in Islam is better demonstrated by blowing up Hindu temples. So, as a precaution against that, they have these useless checks. They just wave it in front of you, and anyone could get in with any amount of bombs. You see, their checks, they're so useless. Anyway, now I'm going on. It's not the point. So a human being is not simply perceiving just like a metal detector. Metal detector, if there's metal, makes a noise. There's some response. But that response is simply mechanical. So a human being is not simply a mechanical perceiver of sense perception. A human being also has emotions, insight, creative thinking. There is this subjective area also. So, faith is subjective, not objective. But blind faith is that which is wholly subjective. And reasonable faith is that which, as you said at the beginning, has reasoning as its background. It has an objective basis. So, faith is required in a sublime principle. Without that faith, one cannot advance in knowledge. That is true in any branch of learning. If you go into the class in school and the teacher says something which in the beginning the students won't understand. The teacher has to teach something which they don't know. It means higher than what they know. Something beyond their knowledge. So if they say, well, we never heard that before, we don't believe it. London is the capital of England. Why should we believe you? If you don't believe, then you can't make progress. You can't advance in knowledge. If you say, well, you have to demonstrate to me, it's very difficult to demonstrate. And what do we have to do? Take you to London? And then it's the capital. And how can you, even if you go to London, how are you going to demonstrate it's the capital of England? Just by being there. Maybe they could take you to the Houses of Parliament and say, well, maybe this is just a big fraud put on just to fool me. You want to fool me that actually London is the capital of England. How do I know these people are actually the administrators? So if you don't want to believe, you can say, well, there's no end to disbelief. But actually everyone has some level of faith. And those who are more advanced in knowledge, they have higher levels of faith. What we call knowledge, even on the material platform, most of it is faith. It's not. It's just like if someone becomes a doctor, they're studying in the medical college, they don't personally ratify everything that's told to them. If one is studying physics, he doesn't personally go through all the different experiments to ratify everything that's taught to him. But he accepts it on faith, not blind faith. There'll be some, just like in the medical school, they'll give diagrams, case histories. What are the different drugs to be used under different circumstances? So it's a cogent system of knowledge. It all fits together. So people accept it, but it's more or less on faith. The medical student reads that prescribed medicine for malaria commonly prescribed medicine is quinine. So he doesn't go and personally check all the different drugs. For him to go and personally check every single drug and find out which is the best for malaria, it'll take him most of his lifetime. But he accepts on faith. Actually, quinine is not the best. It stops malaria. It's bad after. It's my personal experience. But at least he knows there's the medicine. It's the medicine. He has faith. And when he accepts that as a fact, then that faith becomes his knowledge. In most cases, people say, I want to see what I believe, but in most cases, almost all knowledge is synonymous with faith. Especially knowledge acquired by an academic system. And even knowledge that we acquire through our senses, they say, well, I have to see it to believe it. That means we have to have faith in our power of seeing. Faith has to be there somewhere. But our power of seeing, that can be deceptive also. It's like if we see the sun, what will we know just by seeing it? We may think it's some big halogen lamp out in the sky somewhere. Maybe 2-3 kilometers. The government puts some big halogen lamp every day. And some balloon with a halogen lamp which goes sent up in the morning and comes down in the evening. We don't know. Just by seeing, what can you say? Just by seeing the sun, one can see. But we learn from science and from Shastra that the sun is many times larger than the Earth planet. By seeing it, one cannot understand. But that is accepted as what is called common knowledge on faith, not just by seeing. So these are some things. Hare Krishna. Any more questions about this? Seems like you have complete faith in everything I said. It's fun arguing with atheists. Unless they're completely stupid, which unfortunately many times they are. You can't follow any kind of lost points. If you're selling books, then what point should we give up with useless people? Pretty much immediately. Tell them anyway, look at the books. So if you want to be a really good atheist, you should know all the arguments in opposition to it. So these are pretty good, you can tell them. As far as I've seen, I've studied different religious processes and the arguments are pretty good. So if you want to be a really good atheist, you should know the opposition well. And because they don't want to spend money for the book, they'll make up some other. Well, I'm not. But anyway, selling books, like I was telling you yesterday, I don't speak to people much at all. Maybe when I finished on the train selling books, then I may go back to some more interested people. But interested means they should buy the book. First let them buy the book, then you talk with them. So otherwise, so many people, they like to talk, and in the end they won't take any book. Just waste your time. There's many people, you just get the book, and they buy it, fine. They're taking a book is much better than you discussing with them, and then not taking it. So, what else? No? I've discussed these points several times in various lectures. Nature of faith. How can we learn the traditional system of discussing according to Shastra? Well, it's not that complex. you can see how Prabhupada is discussing. Maybe with that Professor Stahl, you can see in Science of Self-Realization. The thing is that there are not that many people these days who are that much even knowledgeable about such a process. Shastric discussions according to the system of Mimams and Nyaya, traditionally that took place in Sanskrit. Or in Indian languages, quoting profusely from Sanskrit. Indian languages means they are based on Sanskrit. But knowledge of Sanskrit was required. And mostly it requires a lot of knowledge of Sanskrit word meanings, grammar, and so on. So how can you learn this? Well, you have to learn Sanskrit very thoroughly to even enter into this. From English you can't do it. But then it is required that maybe one or two devotees in our movement, just to show that we can discuss with such people, but they're satisfied. It would not require that. It would be good if some of our devotees could also meet them on that level. Otherwise they think they're superior. But actually, it's just like you see in this area, the Shankaracharyas and the Madhva Swamis, they've been discussing on a very sophisticated level for generations. They don't change either of them. They'll come together for Shastric discussion. They'll discuss in a very, very, very detailed manner. And then they go away, and they go on, doing whatever they're doing. They don't change. So better to find some maybe less erudite people, and just convince them to follow Bhagavad-gita as it is. It will make you more convinced. Maybe, maybe not. Many devotees who learn Sanskrit, they get diverted because they think, oh, now I know Sanskrit. And actually, I can explain Bhagavad-gita better than Prabhupada. Here he translated it wrong and this and that. So it can be very dangerous also. One has to be careful also. Learn Sanskrit, that's nice, but don't become a useless, puffed up, offensive scholar. There are already enough of them in the world. We don't need to increase the numbers. Rather, we need devotees like Gopi Bernadana, who comes here every day more or less, doesn't he, to this area? He's learned in Shastra, but he has full faith in Srila Prabhupada. He's not blinded by his knowledge into thinking that he's become a greater authority on spiritual knowledge than Srila Prabhupada, which has happened. Prabhupada's own Sanskrit assistant thought he knew how to practice Vaishnavism better than what Prabhupada was teaching. So now he's a professor at the university, so what is his practicing of Vaishnavism? Blasphemy. Because of this vastly developed knowledge in Sanskrit. He may think he knows so much, but he's in terms of Sanskrit knowledge, he's compared to the ordinary man, he's far advanced. But then compared to real scholars, he's just a fly. Because real scholars are very few, then to the ordinary devotee community, he looks like he's very learned. A little knowledge and they become very puffed up. So, definitely it is required to devotees become learned in Shastra. At least some, not everyone has that, even academically the capability. Some should do so. But that knowledge is to serve the parampara, not to foolishly attempt to supersede the parampara. And then one simply becomes again a mouse. So, Hare Krishna. finish here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.